We find it way, but we need an HDMI cord or something.
For now, it's okay, you can listen to it. So this is by Jaden, Carson, me, Emma, and Ray.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay, yeah, no, that's fine. Yeah, no, it's not gonna be. Oh my
Audrey is my real people. She's watched this one.
It's like, I, no, I just went for like
95%.
I live in that, because now. Yeah, but I know.
Okay, so that makes sense, because we'll also like to get the whole thing, you know, when we go through this now.
Yeah, like,
You need to bring them out.
yeah.
Yeah, basically. Maybe the whole, would you? Oh, right, because they're new.
Yeah, yeah, you just get a cap put on. But I heard it's like, it's strange.
You're gonna be saving your life.
I'd rather just get. I'd rather just brush my teeth.
Yeah. So I'm going to, I want to refer to that.
Well, what the?
Yeah, like.
Are you ready? No, you're ready. We have a lot of things and we're taking them now.
I hope I go out laughing and like.
I love this movie.
Yeah.
I love this movie.
And it's like simple.
He wraps an entire place. Just get close.
And then like, I don't feel bad.
Some people do that.
We could probably move that table a little bit and then set you up with a chair there. Would that be helpful?
I'm
You're out. I'm so excited. There's some really rich shirt. Really rich shirt. It's something really nice. So again, really rich shirt. So rich shirt. It's good. It's nothing new to you.
No, it was just. And then I ended up keeping
Look at the title.
Did you read what I wrote? See, when you read what I wrote, then you're gonna be like, oh, I agree.
Well, he said that he would love it, right? And I was like, whoa, but Abby's been really good too.
And I was like, yeah, that's what she said.
You want to sit there? You want to sit
If you would find it, no, I really. Oh no, it's
And then the mic.
Yeah.
The mic could also be a problem.
Yeah.
It could be her. As a mic.
No, really.
And I was like, yeah, pretty much. And I'm like, they're like talking to each other. Yeah, I said. And I didn't get it.
Actually, I think everyone's here. So I'm gonna get it. Yeah. It was so fun. You know the touch basket.
Yeah.
So that. I need to hold.
Well, thank you for joining us this evening. Just like my classes, I'm sure if I wait a couple more minutes, more people will wander in, but we need to get started. So, welcome to Events and Vignettes, an intimate evening of story. My name is Lorraine Brown, and I'm your MC and the professor of these talented student writers. To you, talented student writers. We'd like to acknowledge that Trinity Western University is located on the traditional, ancestral, unceded territory of the Stolo people. Pursuing our theme of truth and reconciliation this semester, we've had the opportunity to work with memoirs written by First Nations authors, and we hold their stories in our hearts. One of my great joys as a mentor to young writers is the trust we establish in our classes. Our lives are rarely simple. The honesty with which we explore them is a blessing essential to our healing as individuals and as people of God. During the last few years, the pandemic has generated losses and innovations. In March 2020, our Cherished Vignettes event was abruptly canceled, along with everything else. But our pre-recorded and live-streamed video essays are still available on YouTube, and this evening's event is hybrid, meaning that it's being live-streamed and will be available for subsequent watching at your leisure. This class is listed as adventures in narrative nonfiction, and what an adventure it is. For some students, EdCom 369 is the first opportunity they've had to look at their lives and experiences as raw material for true stories, memoir, travel writing, personal essays on topics in which we're all passionately interested. It's challenging enough for international students to study in a foreign culture where they're forced to read and write in another language, but we have the privilege to be trusted by a few brave international students who want to push themselves, and I welcome others. One of my great joys, already read that. So we all live in relationship with others, with families, friends, colleagues, and God. As writers, we need to understand how we are affected by our relationships, to understand how they work or fail to work, but vulnerability becomes a strength for our next two readers, Katie and Jaden, as they explore family relationships. In Give Thanks, Katie Vermeulen celebrates her Oma, Dutch for grandmother, and a meal shared with friends and family. Katie.
Hi everyone, thanks for coming. I have a story to tell you. It is 1,200 words, so sit back and relax. It will be a little bit long, but long stories are good stories too. So the name of my story is called Give Thanks. I believe answered prayers come through phone calls. Sitting on the living room couch at home, I look down at my hands and see my nails are short, my breath anxious. The laptop in front of me has many tabs open. Jumping between 3 different class assignments, I look down at my phone and see that Oma called an hour ago. I've been thinking about her often these past 2 weeks. When was the last time I saw her? My ability to remember evades me. The last memory I can think of is when my friends and I went over to cook her an Indonesian meal. My stepmom and dad came too. That would have been too long ago, close to a month ago. Oma lives 7 minutes away from me. I call her back. She answers the phone. "Oh, Katie, how are you? Where have you been?" Her voice is upbeat and so excited. I call her Oma, but many call her Millie. Millie Cook. Her voice is thick with Dutch. She pronounces her son Peter's name as Peter. She is a foot shorter than I and wears her long white hair up in a clip. At 90 years old, she looks amazing, with glowing olive skin and high cheekbones. I love the way she laughs every other few sentences, often laughing to herself just for being alive this long. Her voice is so sweet, but not always smooth. She has asthma that sometimes makes her speak slow, select with her words. "Oma, I'm so glad you called. Where have I been? I've been at school, work, at home doing assignments. I miss you. I'll come by this Thursday." She cheers. "Oh, good," she says. "That will be so nice. Enjoy your studies now. God's peace be with you. Love you. Bye-bye." I think back to the last time I saw her, our Indonesian dinner with friends. Before the dinner, I had asked Oma what she wanted to eat, and she pulled out her favorite cookbook. It's called Coconut 24/7. We selected braised beef and vegetables in coconut sauce with chopped eggplant. I remember days earlier when she mentioned, "The food I eat, Katie, it's so bland." Some days, when the family is really busy, she has food delivered to her doorstep. Cooking has become a big task for her. Lifeless food is delivered in a plastic sealed tin. She told me of her life back in Indonesia, when her family was all still living together. As a little girl, she would walk through the jungle to grade school. Her mother would cook fried chicken for a living, filling her basket with spiced chicken and leaving home on her bicycle. Her mother would return home with a light load, selling out of her delicious chicken at the market every day. As a child, Oma would pluck the petals of flowers and place them on her tongue, feeling the light translucent floras melting and dissolving on the roof of her mouth. Flowers, she would taste them, the sweet ones and the bitter ones, a way to further experience the beauty of form. Atoms that would be bloomed into a sour flowering that she grew to desire and admire. That memory she shared stuck with me, so much so that I brought it up years later. "I remember you telling me about how you would eat flowers as a child, Oma." Laughing sweetly, she replied, "I still eat flower petals." She smiled, "like the ones on the kitchen table." She pointed to the Christmas cactus on the table, a flowering cactus, one that people may assume is from the desert, due to its bony, multi-piece stem. The petals of the flowers are pink and somehow naturally sparkly. Light shines through them like tiny veils of form. The cactus's home is the tropical rainforest. Oma and this plant share origins. My good friend Kenneth is from Indonesia too. I met him last summer. Anyone who knows Kenneth knows he's a gifted chef. So I asked him if we could cook something together for Oma. He too had a special voice, soft, slow, and peaceful. My friend Esther is from the humid and tropical Singapore. She misses the flavors of the Southeast Asian food, so I invite her to the dinner too. She always tells me we need to go visit Indonesia together so that I can meet more kind-hearted people like Kenneth and my Oma. In the small kitchen of Oma's apartment, only two can cook at once. So Kenneth and I start chopping, mixing, and seasoning. It's been a while since I had time to cook meals like this. The aroma begins to float into the living room where my dad and stepmom holler to us. It smells good in there. The phone rings. It's Karina, my friend who lives in Vancouver. I haven't seen her in a while. She has a lineage of Spanish mothers in her family tree. Hey Katie, I'm going to be in Langley tonight. What you up to? Oh my gosh, perfect, I say. We're about to have dinner. Would you like to come? You can finally meet my Oma. And with that, we have a table of 7 tonight. The food takes longer to cook than I anticipated, and my dad is sure to pop into the kitchen for some instruction. Carrie, my stepmom, is a cook as well, so she helps us read the cookbook when we are confused by the instructions. Karina and Esther show up and chat with Oma while Kenneth and I finish the meal. The sounds of laughter and chatter flood into the kitchen as we taste the sauce. Kenneth intuitively adds random spices from Oma's cupboard and is presently surprised by the traditional spices not often sold at the markets here in Langley. The table is set and we take our seats. It is a late dinner and everyone's bellies are hungry. With a subtle sense of impatience, Oma initiates, let's pray. Giving thanks for all that has and all that will and all that is. She thanks each person for being there. Thank you, Lord, for this amazing meal and beautiful people. This is so wonderful, God. The sound of gratitude in her voice makes it shaky. She clears her throat to finish her prayer. My throat becomes tight along with hers. At the end of the evening, Karina and Esther help in the kitchen, and Kenneth and Oma talk off to the side about life in Indonesia. My dad, stepmom, and I talk about how lovely of an evening it was, how grateful we are for this window of time to make space for what is valuable and sacred. When we say our goodbyes, Oma insists we must do this again. She turns to us all in the doorway with joy in her eyes and a smile on her face. Bye everyone, thank you all. Later, Karina texts me, "You're almost so happy." I nearly cried when she said she would pray for me. Thinking of all the moments and people we have to thank God for, I say a prayer that God would help my heart, that I would make time for her, for my Oma amongst this busyness. At that moment, I look across the street from where my car window is and see a beautiful magnolia tree. Driving down the street from Oma's house are many magnolia trees, and when I see them, I'm reminded to give thanks for her and pray for peace into her heart. The way the flowering tree wilts big petals and leaves a carpet of white below its branches, changing with seasons, yet standing so beautifully. Thank you.
A canceled flight leads to unplanned family reconnections for Jaden Bird as Uncle Al comes to the rescue to avert a night in Calgary Airport. Jaden.
Mine is also 1,200 words, and I would read fast. I would read fast, but Lorena wants me to read slow. So. Yeah. All right. So yeah, this one's called Uncle Al. Nervously shifting in my seat, my palms clammy and my eyes darting up and down, checking the time on my phone. I sat on a plane from Comox to Calgary that had seemingly been delayed with no communication as to why. Usually I would not care if the plane was delayed. If there's something that needs to be done that ensures that I land safe and sound, do your thing and don't cut corners. But today was different. It was different because our connecting flight from Calgary to the middle of nowhere, Cranbrook, British Columbia, was leaving only 15 minutes after this plane would inevitably land, if we left on time. I kept looking over at my brother Carson and my girlfriend Angie to see if they were as paranoid as I was, but Carson continued to assure me that it will be okay and that it'll work itself out. Yeah, but we're gonna have to sprint when we land, I said as I checked what gate we needed to be at. The plane eventually took off. There was only 5 minutes delay. That was the longest 5 minutes in delay. The reason why we were flying to Cranbrook, British Columbia, a small town up in the Kootenays, was because one of my childhood friends was getting married that weekend. We were going to stay with my grandma, see some of my cousins and other friends, and just enjoy a few days off of work. After watching pretty much the entirety of the Mario movie, we had finally landed in Calgary, Alberta. Carson and I had already planned out how we were going to exit the plane in the most efficient way. It included not letting anyone get in our way. Being polite was not an option. We had a plane to catch. We finally got off the plane, and like I said we needed to do, sprinted from one side of the airport to the other, getting to the gate with 2 minutes to spare. We were exhausted but excited because on the other side of the next plane ride was our grandma who would take us to cozy beds and home-cooked meals. We took a seat in anticipation, ready to board, but instead, to the dismay of us and the 6 other people waiting, the flight had been canceled. I was shook. We never got a clear explanation as to why, but the rumor that was spreading around was that it was due to weather. Clear skies must be a nightmare to fly in. Thankfully for us, my mom's aunt and uncle lived in Calgary, and we're more than happy to rescue us from being stranded in the Calgary airport. I was filled with frustration and was confused why this had happened. We were all exhausted as it was nearing midnight, and all I could think of was how I would have to be up in 6 hours to do all this over again. Squished between our luggage, we sat in the back of Aunt Mar and Uncle Al's trunk, discussing how absurd it was that our flight was canceled and how thankful we were to have them pick us up. I had not seen them in a long time, and it was going to be a lot longer before I was able to see them again, so the quick visit was welcomed by all of us. As the drive progressed, Al noticed a cop car parked on the side of the road. "The piggies are out," he said with a smile on his face. Being the goofy and stubborn self he is, he proceeded to accelerate way beyond the speed limit and zoom past the cop. Mar smacked his arm and scoffed and told him to slow down. Mar and Al were high school sweethearts and had been married for 53 years, so she was used to his antics. It made me smile seeing them interact, as I aspired to be like them when I got to their age. When we arrived at their house, we dropped our bags down on the thick carpet, and Mar, being the saint she is, began to prepare us a 5-star meal of scrambled eggs and toast. She took an excited yet exhausted Angie to help her prepare the meal and set up the beds, as Al took Carson and I out back to show us the project he'd been working on. It was a cover for his Ford Model A car that he had been restoring so that he did not have to keep it in the garage anymore. He had built the entire cover himself out of plywood and pipe. He explained to Carson and I that it did not make sense for him to buy one for thousands of dollars when he could just make one his own for a fraction of the price. To fit it, he needed to fall a tree in the backyard, which he did at the spry age of 76. The entire time he was telling me this, I'm laughing in disbelief, although I'm not sure why, because this is the same man that built an entire walk-in safe in his basement for his gun collection. He then took us into the garage to show us the progress on the Model A car he had been restoring. He was getting pretty close, but he told us how he was having trouble tracking down a few parts. We all headed inside, congregated around the feast of scrambled eggs at 1 o'clock in the morning. Although we were all exhausted, we were in no rush to leave the table. We talked with Mar and Al about so many topics varying from school, life when they were teens, and the weather. So much wisdom was shared by our overexhausted selves. After a quick sleep, we headed to the airport. When we were saying goodbye, I hugged Al and wished him good luck in his Model A restoration, and that I hoped he was able to drive it soon. Unfortunately, Al never got to finish restoring his car. Just 4 months after our visit, Al was taken to the hospital. He had suffered multiple heart attacks. He fought hard, but after weeks in the hospital, he had passed away just a few months before Christmas. At the time, I was so angry and confused why our flight had been canceled. All I could think about was how I would be sleeping in and relaxing rather than waking up early and flying out again. It was more of an inconvenience and a nuisance. Now I look back at that night, and I'm beyond thankful that my flight was canceled. I would not have been able to see Al one last time before he passed. He would never have met Angie, and I would never have the amazing memory of him to share to everyone who knew him and loved him. Sometimes God may not reveal right away why things happen. In fact, he may never know why things happen. But for this moment, I know why my flight was canceled. It was to see my Uncle Al one last time and create a special memory with him that I would be able to look back on forever and say, remember that night? That was such a special night.
Childhood is a rich resource for memoirists, and travel experiences can enrich our young lives or bring out our true characters. Here, Lindsay Wanuli explores a place where it's always summer. Lindsay.
Hello, I'm Lindsay. Nice
story is about family and a beautiful city. I hope everyone can relate. Always summer. Do you know Sanya? It's a seaside city at the southmost tip of mainland China, an international travel city with the tropical and seaside scenery. The story I wanted to tell this time is about this place. I was a kid when I first came to Sanya. I came with my mother to visit her sister, whose Chinese name is Jun. Jun is my mother's younger sister, who left her hometown to living on her own with her daughter after ending her last marriage. Since then, she only went home to join her family during the Chinese New Year every year and left only a few weeks later. Unfortunately, however, that year she was not able to return home on time to join her family. Then later, my mother decided to visit her sister in her city and go on a vacation with her whole family. I had a lot of fun along the way. It was the first time I had ever been on an airplane and the first time I had ever gone to see the ocean as a young child. My hometown is the middle of mainland China. There is no sea, only a river. Therefore, when I was a child, I was curious and whimsical about the sea. Even though it was winter, I feel very hot when I get off the plane. That's because Sanya, a city near a equal, has a summer all year round. We are kind of guard in our winter clothes. When summer arrived, my mom and sister would wear their summer clothes underneath when the warm would. And now all they had to do was take off their thick clothes on the outside. Only me, inside and out, was wearing and having a warm winter coat. I felt very hot and kept shouting for mom to bring out my summer coat so that I could change out of my thick winter clothes. However, my sister laughed at me on the sick side. Who is the one who didn't listen to mom before going out and had to go out the thick clothes? I angrily turned my body back to her and covered my ears with hands. Not to listen to her. My aunt June was waiting for us at the airport with her daughter. My mother and my aunt were so excited to meet that my aunt hugged my mother. And they pulled my mother forward and talked to her, even ignoring their children. My sister is much older than my cousin and I, so she has to temporarily take on the responsibility to taking care of us well. I hadn't seen my cousin for a long time, and we also didn't remember each other. My cousin was very good at holding my sister's hand well. I kept picking at formulating my cousin. Her face looks like an apple, I thought. My aunt smiled and picked it up to her daughter and said, "Why don't you say hello to each other?" My aunt and mother finally remembered they have children. My cousin gently hugged my aunt's neck before burying her heart in her mother's arms. His face became more like a red apple. We stayed at my aunt's house, which was not near the beach. I was a little disappointed. I couldn't see the beach, see the ocean from my room. However, the next moment I was happy again because my aunt said she would take us to the beach in the evening. We can only see the sea, but also going to the restaurant on the beach to eat delicious seafood. My cousin and I was very happy, chatting all the way. My cousin told me that his favorite thing was to building castles with surf on the beach. She also said that there would be winter water in the host deck on the beach. She told me a lot of the things. I listened with good attention and very nervous that my cousin could often go to the beach to play. The evening breeze in Sanya completely different from my hometown. The evening breeze in Sanya carries the moisture and the cold temperature of the seawater. I can still smell the subtle smell of the sea when it gently blows over our face. This is a feeling I have never had in my hometown. The nights in Sanya also different from those in my hometown. Maybe it's because it's the summer in this city all year round. At the night, here is always very lively. There were also many people at the beach that my aunt and mother had hold our hand tightly for fear that we would be swept away by the crowd. I had a little instead with my cousin at dinner. Yes, not happy thing. When it came time to order, my cousin and I also asked the same drink. My cousin kept telling me on the way, here is Qingguliang, here is very delicious, and it's special snake in Sanya, Hainan. I was interested in her description that I want to try it. We may not love it that much, but kids always fight with each other because it is only one. However, something bad happened. The restaurant only saved on Qiliangbu and told us that they were out of this snack for the day and only this one week was left. My cousin and I didn't want to give up the only one. Then we will all cry and laugh as we could that we only want this one. Even though my aunt and mother had said they could get the same drink somewhere else, we crawl and fight. The child's unreasonableness was fully demonstrated at this moment. Oh my God, I heard my sister break down and speak. Right after that, my sister took Qingguliang and ate it quickly. She told my cousin and me that this one was hers, that she had finished it and was going back a new Qingguliang for disposal. No one is allowed to cry anymore. I suppose my cousin and I looked at our hungry sister. We didn't dare her to cry anymore. We could only choke back to tears and nod our heads. Many people say that my sister is gentle, but after this, I don't think she is gentle at all. Many years later, at my aunt's wedding, my aunt said it and jokingly said to my cousin and me, "Do you remember when you were little and almost got into the fight over food? No need to fight this time. You guys can eat as much as you want." My mother laughed next to me and talked to my aunt about what had happened that year. My cousin and I bowled our heads in the embarrassment in the fright of the crowd, hoping that elders would not bring up our childhood embarrassment. Now that we are grow up, we think we are stupid when we were kids. I still love Sanya, a very charming city. Thank you.
Travel writing takes an audience into new worlds and across cultures, even if we're writing about our own backyard. Here, Julia Ganouju turns her fresh, wide-eyed vision on Canada to offer us a glimpse of ourselves from an angle we don't often experience. Julia, new to Canada.
Hi everyone, my name is Julia and my is new to Canada. As the planet welcome to Vancouver with trepidation, I set foot in a new country for the first time. It was the first time I had to come to a country with a completely different language and culture. I was excited and scared. Excited that I would be able to see and partake in the new culture. But then at the same time, I was free that I wouldn't be able to fit in and might have problem with the culture exchange. I saw all English words I had memorized in the book appearing in real life, but still find my native language Chinese very quickly and actively. The signal at the Vancouver airport was also in Chinese too, which eased my fear a little bit. At least I won't be sent back to China before I leave the airport, like in the movie. Julia, we welcome you. I saw a post as soon as I stepped out of the airport with a lot of graffiti, color, and very nice Chinese character. It was my host family. They had made the poster to greet me, and once again, my fear was chased away. Hello, nice to meet you. I said this to my host family in a way I had learned in my textbook. Nice to meet you too. How are you? My Canadian mom asked. I still use the response I was taught in my Chinese textbook. I'm fine, thank you. And you? My Canadian dad replied, very well, we are very excited to meet you. As he said this, he took the luggage card from me. Also with them was a girl in my age named Lisa, followed by two little boys, a brother named Tommy and a brother named Tim. Since my English is not very good, we try to communicate with each other in the car on the way back, but not much. And it was a long way from Vancouver Airport to Chilliwack House. But at the same time, I was curious to observe the completely different world, especially the completely different architectural style. Especially after I got on the highway, I realized that I couldn't hardly see any house. Occasionally, some buildings appeared, but they were completely different from the tall building in China. Especially the closer I got to Chilliwack, the more I couldn't see the tall building. While I was observing, I was flirting with my cell phone, trying to get in touch with my parents in China, since I hadn't told them about me since I left the airport. Before I knew it, I reached my home in Chilliwack, and they arranged everything for me and give me plenty of time to get jet lag. They helped me a lot with my study and life, and organized almost everything for me. Chilliwack made me think this was Vancouver. Everyone's house had a big lawn, and nearby was farm with cows, chickens, and corn. The smell of fresh grass was in the air, quite different from the exhaust fee I experienced in the city in China. I enjoyed the traveling line and hammock and swine set in the backyard of the house. But most of the time, I was in my room studying. So they took me on vacation to see a completely different Canada. As the car pulled over the highway, I saw a downtown with the tall buildings, completely different from Canada I saw in Chilliwack. We came to visit Sphere, like a science and technique museum, strolled through some street and saw a lot of architectural neighborhood with character and those skyscraper. Here, I actually catch up many people speak Chinese and Cantonese. The feeling was familiar to me, and for the moment, the loneliness of being in Canada was availed. But my brother Tom and I had a completely different feeling that I hadn't noted, and I was immersed in the downtown area, documenting the different looks of Canada. Especially exciting to see the Chinese restaurant and the Chinese supermarket. It made me feel that I wasn't the only Chinese because rarely would saw a Chinese face in Chihuahua, and I always felt that I must be the only Chinese. On the way back to Chihuahua, my mom asked me and kids how we feel about the day, and obviously I was happy and excited to express my feeling. But when it was turned to the young boys to express their unhappiness, they feel uncomfortable in the center of the city as there were so many Chinese people in their own country. And they didn't understand the Chinese they heard being spoken on the road. And he probably said some disrespectful things about China, but my English is not very good and I only understood his unhappiness. But I totally understand how he felt. I think that if I, as a Chinese person, can find some sense of belonging in the center of Vancouver, then as a Canadian, they must feel uncomfortable, as if their country has been robbed. When I got home, my mom had to talk with Tommy because Tommy approached me to apologize for not respecting me and my country. To be honest, I feel guilty because I understood how he felt. And also, as a foreigner, I didn't try to integrate into their culture. Although it is good to have your own unique culture, when you come to Canada, you have to need to integrate into the local culture. So since then, I have been actively involved into volunteering and local Canadian activity whenever my mom asks if I want to do so. I think no matter where we travel, live, or study, we need to more involved and integrate rather than unwilling to step out of our comfort zone. Our travel and study will become to an end someday. And since we spend time, money, and energy on them, we should participate and enjoy them to fullest with respect. Thank you.
Writer Tom Athery tells us that sound is highly emotive, and the power of music is universal. But he says sounds can scare you, startle you, make you mournful, joyful, ecstatic. Here, Gabriela Villanueva takes us on a sonic visit to her hometown, San Pedro Sula, Honduras, in bloom. Gabriela.
Hi everyone. Hi everyone. This is
Hello. Boom. If I were to sum up my childhood with two sounds, they would be the explosive boom of fireworks and the sharp blam of gunshots. A blend of sounds that could compose the symphony of my hometown, San Pedro Sula. A blend that also embodies my Honduran culture, filled with the duality between joyful celebrations and frightening violence. Growing up in San Pedro Sula, Honduras, meant navigating a mix of festive cheers and unsettling sounds. Despite being a small country, Honduras showcased a contrast between joyous traditions like carnivals and food festivals and the harsh reality of a third world country. Cultural celebrations intertwined with the shadows of uncertainty, a mix of experiences that undeniably shaped my life. Blam, blam, blam. Don't wear too much jewelry or fancy watches.
Always be with someone when going outside. Cover yourself up. Don't show too much skin. Take with you only the money you really need. These were some of the unspoken rules that accompanied the rising crime rate in my city. I witnessed moments where people faced consequences for not following these rules. So, to be safe and sound, I figured I also had to do so. I'm from San Pedro Sula, also known growing up as the murder capital of the world and the most violent city on earth. Ironically, our city is named Saint Peter Sula, but it's far from being saintly or safe. For many of us that lived or grew up there, gunshots became as common as the sounds of fire trucks in Vancouver. Living there was tough, and these unspoken rules served as a guide through a place where danger prevailed. Because of this reality, I was a very scared kid growing up. My parents called me gallinita, which means little hen. I lived in constant worry. As a visual person, driving through busy streets and seeing still lifeless bodies on the ground replayed in my mind. I would overthink and name the things that could happen to me: kidnapping, car theft, extortion, rape, human trafficking. I would flinch at the drop of a needle, and loud sounds like blam, blam, blam would often keep me up at night. Nights were full of uncertainty and fear, giving a glimpse into a reality that might sound horrendous, but it was my reality. Yet, it wasn't just about crime, violence, and shootings. Boom, boom, boom. Whenever I come across that phrase, Katy Perry's fireworks song immediately echoes in my mind. My childhood too was filled with countless moments of celebration. Moments where the night sky would be filled with bright colors and sparkling lights. Whenever I would look at the big, colorful lights across the night sky, my younger self would go, oh, oh, oh. I really did love fireworks. They were like big, magical surprises. Picture this: bursts of light in the night that looked like giant, colorful candies popping open. I used to watch with wide eyes as they lit up, almost like giant sparklers that painted the night sky with all of my favorite colors. And when they went boom, it was like that the sky was trying to tell me something. The air was filled with sounds that made me giggle. It sounded like a mix of claps and laughter. It was as if the sky was putting on a special show just for me, making the night feel like the happiest bedtime story ever. Latinos, including Hondurans, really love celebrating life, and fireworks are a big part of it. They bring families and people together, making special moments that last a lifetime. For this reason, my family would often gather and light up fireworks during special celebrations and holidays. The most memorable celebration for me growing up would be Christmas Eve. In my country, Christmas Eve is celebrated more than Christmas Day. This is a day where families, friends, and loved ones gather to dance, feast, and reminisce on life. However, when the clock hits midnight, the sky becomes a canvas for fireworks. Families gather on the dark dirt roads to see the light-covered sky, shouting with happiness, hugging each other tightly, and then rushing inside to enjoy the delicious dinner they've been eagerly waiting for. These little traditions make the celebrations feel warm and full of love. But I would always wait eagerly to look at the fireworks, and food, of course. Boom, blam, boom, blam. As the years went by, it was harder for me to tell if the loud sounds were fireworks or something else happening in my city. The happy boom turned into a kind of worrying blam, and then, strangely, the serious blam started to feel like a surprising boom. These changes in the sounds matched how my life was changing. In the middle of all the happy celebrations, it became hard to know if the loud sounds were just for fun or a warning that something was about to go wrong. Even at birthday parties or weddings, I would be on a constant fight or flight mode. The night sky, which used to be full of colorful lights, now had a mix of feelings, like my complicated life in Honduras. But even with all of the confusing sounds, there was still something good. The the unexpected bloom felt like a secret message that Hondurans or Catrachos were flourishing and blooming amid challenges and finding moments of beauty through uncertainty. After I moved to Vancouver, I occasionally hear sounds like the ones I heard growing up. And even though the confusing sounds found me here, they are a reminder of the ever-changing rhythm in my hometown, where resilience and adaptability are rooted in those who call San Pedro Sula home.
Now it's time for snacks and drinks. You'll find refreshments in the other room. We'll have 15 minutes, 10 minutes, 10. We say 10 to 15, but let's keep it to 10 and enjoy our second half of the program. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. Wow.
Sitting by you?
You don't feel there.
Would you like me to get you a waist mask?
Sure, hello, good to see you.
Good to see you.
Good. He invited me, Audrey, Marco, I'm very excited, hey, and, good. I'm excited. During the year, I've been read some of the like, wow, that is always my favorite. When people can put their stories, it's effectively communicate their story.
Exactly. Exactly.
They think it ultimately goes because before it was writing, yeah, I know. My schedule is packed. And also my degree, but maybe when I graduate, I still have to take action.
Okay.
So definitely should go on my list.
Yes.
Thank you.
I wasn't able to listen to it, but I'm sure it was wonderful.
It's great.
No, what was your story?
I know the story's about my
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah. That's okay. No, it's all good.
My remarks are in the same order as the program.
Wait.
Interesting. Oh, the variety of story. Oh,
Yeah. Like I'm learning. Like I need to get you. You would like. All right, do you need water? All right.
When you said travel right now, it's like, very fun. Yeah. This is it. Oh, okay. Oh, this is the place to make class. It is. Okay. It's consistent. Yeah. Yes. Yeah, no, I know, exactly. But, yeah, this semester. Yeah.
It would be really hard to shape them down, like the story that I have is like 1,300 words.
Well, I was like, I guess the whole thing that goes with like, you're into the story and you're like, it's okay. That's right. That's right. I know. Thanks for joining us. Good to meet you, Andrew. Thanks for coming. Lauren Brown. Yeah. This is my class, yeah. The last one of the semester. Good semester.
I'm not in any.
Oh, that's great. I'm really good. How do we find out what others? Yeah, she is. Of course, they're all the best.
Yeah, they're all. I was planning on it because but I had a big day. I did a photo shoot.
Oh, did you?
I went to the
Was a good crowd. The rain.
Oh, yeah. See, like, New Jersey, that's obviously.
Pretty well known by.
Oh, yeah.
I've never actually met them.
I didn't even notice.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Right, really? Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Good.
I'm always happy for you to support me.
She's glad to be here.
Is the volleyball
Do you want a snack?
What are you up to?
So I'm just gonna you're opening already. Yeah. Because I feel like yes, that's so cool. And then I'm gonna
Let's take a photo.
yeah, we should.
Yeah, so pretty much, I pretty much, you like to do stuff.
Oh.
No. Nobody did.
I got it. Thanks. You're welcome.
So I did a photo. Just for fun. My good copy. The guy that does all photos.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
1 minute warning. Please return to your seats.
Hey, how's it going, man?
While we're getting to our seats, some people have been asking, how do I select the student readers for this event? This is my whole class. It's a requirement of the course that everybody reads. A couple of years ago, one of my rebellious students said, I don't have to read. I go, yeah, everybody has to read. She said, okay, but I'm not dressing up. I said, whatever, just show up. So she did, and it turned out to be the highlight of her career too. So this is one of my favorite classes to teach because of the sheer variety of stories that we get to share with each other. So thank you for joining us tonight. Problem with the program is that I said it before I did my remarks, and so it got out of order. Apologies. When Seth Claassen had the opportunity to take a missions trip to South America, he returned with the seeds for a travel memoir about the people and the culture. Seth, take me back.
So my name is Seth, and this is Taking Back. Paraguay, a South American landlocked country in the center of the continent. A landscape where scarlet-colored sand is all you can see as far as the eye, and the air almost feels like water. Somewhere that felt so far away, yet sometimes felt like home. This Paraguay trip was actually a missions trip with my TWU rugby team and the Team Up organization run by our very own TWU soccer coach, Graham Roxborough. Until we left, I had only heard good things from the others before me about the missions trip and the beauty of Latin America from the few Argentinians on my team. When it comes to mission trips, I've only been on one. This was the first time in South America, as well as our first team missions trip. Committing to this journey with my fellow teammates and staff was what I was most looking forward to. Being with the people I have worked hard with all year and the staff who have worked hard for me created much more of a spark in my heart to be in Paraguay. In the beginning of this trip and before it, I was convinced I was the one struggling due to the fact leading up to the trip, the school year was ending and I was consumed by my schoolwork. A day or two before we left, I was starting to become more anxious as I didn't know what to expect. I started to think about the trip through a selfish lens, constantly pondering thoughts like, am I way too stressed and tired to help others? Will this be a waste of the start of my summer? And if this time will be worth it and preparation. Mentally preparing myself for the trip and putting time aside from my busy studying schedule would have been key for me. Thinking back now and giving myself time to reasonably process and understand what we were trying to accomplish, who we will be seeing, working with, as well as processing some of the hardships we experienced, would have helped me shake off that anxious and unknowing feeling. Eventually, we made it to YVR to start a 2-day journey to South America. From the moment we stepped into the airport, an exciting energy permeated the air as it started to get real for everyone. I remember the choreography of the check-in counters, security checks, and luggage conveyor belts, while the jumbled sounds of the intercom and airport golf cart sirens whine in the background. We stopped in Montreal first for 5 hours, then Sao Paulo, Brazil for 16 hours, and finally we touched down in the land of Paz y Justicia, or in English, peace and justice. The layover felt like I was mastering the art of patience and observation, from waiting in the airport's uncomfortable seats, walking the airport loop for the 5th time, to the small anecdotes of serendipity and connection with the fellow travelers along the way, breaking borders and cultures. I got out of the airport into the warm air hugging around me, straight into the chaotic streets and honking horns of traffic. The first thing I noticed when we loaded the luggage and headed to the hotel was how all the traffic rules were absent. Cars driving sideways across the street, people walking between cars, and motorcycles with more than enough people on them. Right away, when landing, it felt like experiencing another world, so different from the one I'm used to. My eyes didn't attract to notice the big differences like everyone else, but rather locked onto the little details and differences. The simple things like their traffic were so foreign, yet made me realize that this kind of transportation is totally normal for everyone here. Seeing these details and understanding our environment is what caused me to peel off the selfish lens I was blind to. Once we arrived at the cool, air-conditioned hotel lobby and everyone got to their room, I was out cold. The next day, I was mixed with emotions. Tired from the 2-day pilgrim, yet now thrilled to see what the future held. It was an early but easy day, going into local communities, gifting sports balls, and building relationships. After each day, we did a much-needed debrief of what we thought of our environment, the jobs we did, and the stories we heard. With this trip being the entire rugby program, meaning my team and the women's rugby team, Graham, who was leading us through the trip, broke us into small mixed team discussion groups. Not knowing a lot of the women's rugby team was a blessing in disguise, as we quickly bonded over our good and hard experiences, not knowing that these relationships would continue to grow after Paraguay. I thought that having unfamiliar people would hold me back from sharing. However, it ended up encouraging me because I knew that I wasn't on this trip for myself anymore, but to help others. Sharing of the touching stories of God's people in Paraguay was necessary to encourage me to speak out. One of our biggest jobs of the trip was one of the biggest eye-openers for me personally. The job was helping a family build their house basically from scratch. Using the word house is an overstatement, as it was more like a small shack. The walls were made of stacked scrap wood pieces and broken brick with sharp rough edges that brushed our arms every time we entered. The uneven mud of the dirt floor painted the ground, while the 2 mattresses sat in the corner for the 3 of them to sleep on. The family was a single mother with her 2 little boys around the ages of 3 and 10 years old. The roof being barely held up by the walls was old scrap metal, uneven, creating crevices for the tropical downpour to rush through. Walking into the house, you are greeted with a dense, earthy dirt smell, rotting wood, and Maria, the mom, standing in the corner holding her young boy. First meeting Maria, I could only talk to her through translation, as I don't know Spanish. In the brief conversations and moments we shared, the language barrier started to dissolve as our interactions showed me the power of empathy, understanding, and that genuine connection transcends linguistic differences. The more we were around her, the more I observed her watching us around the job site we were working at. The more I could see her strength amid the grimness of her environment. Looking into her dark hazel eyes reflected the resilience and testament to the indomitable power of her character and beauty. Through the short and sweet moments like this, I had much more of a greater understanding of the Paraguayan people, showing me that it's not just about exchanging greetings, being nice, and going on with your day, but rather valuing this special time we get to communicate with people. This was one of the biggest lessons I learned and taught to me by Maria. From the communication classes I have taken throughout my years at TWU, I am positive to say that the people of Paraguay are polychronic, meaning they value the time they get with others rather than material items or racing to be somewhere. This kind of polychronic culture really made an impression on me and was something I started to focus on to take back to Canada. Taking these experiences back was much more of a challenge than I had initially thought. Going back to the first day, we were given a notebook to write down our thoughts, questions during the nightly discussion group, as well as a help to guide the discussions. The notebook for me personally was a game changer when it came to the trip ending. I obviously didn't want the trip to end, but this small notebook was an anecdote of my time here. Each page has a different memory from a different day, etched with the distant fragments of lessons I learned in Paraguay that acts as a beacon of light in the mundane times of routine in my everyday life. Thank you.
A novel has a story, a poem, rhyme, says Virginia Woolf. But what art can the essayist use in these short lengths of prose to sting us wide awake and fix us in a trance which is not sleep, but rather an intensification of life? Embark on a captivating journey through Egypt's wonders alongside Ria Clark as she shares her unforgettable encounters with world leaders and awe-inspiring sights of the world. Ria.
November 2022, an interesting moment in my life. Somehow, I was selected as one of 4 Canadians to attend the United Nations Conference of the Parties, happening that year in Egypt. Listen, this conference is a big deal. We're talking about the biggest conference on climate change, crawling with world leaders, celebrities, and your very own Ria Clark. Now, let's time travel back to where it all began. Chapter 1, Destination, Cairo, Egypt. You bet, the first thing I did while I drove away from my university's campus towards the airport was put all of my thoughts about school on instant do not disturb. The stress of missing 1 week of school was not getting in the way of this lifetime experience. So like any other normal person, I said goodbye to all my classes. See you later, non-vascular biology. I hope I never see you again, calculus. And I always forget I'm taking you anyway, French. And then boom. Next thing I know, the wheels of my airplane are squealing against the friction of the Cairo runway. An instant surge of excitement ran through my body. I've read about Egyptian history in classes before, and even an unusual documentary on Cleopatra. But me, Ria Clark, visiting Egypt? This was something I thought would only happen once I got married, had kids, became a successful doctor, and got my parents' stamp of approval. But the next thing I knew, this mental checklist was tossed through the window, and I stepped onto the tarmac and was greeted by the warm embrace of the Egyptian sun. Its golden rays and my golden skin were destined to meet. With just one day to explore Cairo, I wasted no time in setting out to explore the treasures. The first stop, the legendary pyramids of Giza. As my shoes sunk into the yellow sand, I couldn't help but feel a sense of awe wash over me. Towering majestically against the backdrop of the desert, the pyramids stood tall, defying both time and logic. Their sheer size and grandeur left me speechless. Mounting a camel for a tour of the pyramids, I marveled at the intricate craftsmanship and engineering prowess of the ancient Egyptians. The rhythmic sway of the camel's back carried me through time, transporting me to an era of pharaohs and Egyptian gods. As we traversed the sandy terrain, I couldn't shake the feeling of insignificance in the presence of such monumental structures, each one a testament to human ambition. Our next stop on the tour led us to the Sphinx. Its weathered face stared back at me while I stood in its shadow. I couldn't help but wonder about the stories it could tell me, if only it could speak. Then the next thing you know, the sun set over Cairo, casting the sky ablaze with hues of orange and pink. I bid farewell to the ancient wonders of the city and boarded a plane bound for Sharm el-Sheikh. Chapter 2, and a 2-hour flight. When I landed, I was immediately shocked by the contrast between the bustling streets of Cairo and the tranquil beauty of the seaside town. The waters of the Red Sea stretched out before me, their crystal clear depths inviting me to explore. Chapter 3, brushing shoulders with royalty. Over the next 5 days, I would find myself immersed in the world of COP27, where all walks of life united through a common goal: to address climate change. As I navigated the conference halls, I found myself in the midst of Prime Minister Mia Mottley of Barbados, the closest I'd ever get to being in the presence of singer-songwriter Rihanna, also from Barbados. In another moment, I found myself accidentally cracking jokes with the Princess of Morocco. I was completely oblivious to her royal status until I casually walked away and noticed the flickering of cameras and security personnel swarming towards her. When everything finally clicked in my mind of who I was talking to, all I could think was, dang, she must have thought I was a princess of India or something. But in all seriousness, I thought, wow, what an awesome surprise gift from God. And then the gifts did not end. The highlight of the conference came as a notification on my phone. Email number 1001 called out to me, and yeah, I ignored it. It was hot, and this woman had her mind set on ice cream. And then I dropped my ice cream, of course. The email? Just a standard, coveted invitation to attend Joe Biden's speech on climate change. I guess the rumor spread that I was the Princess of India, so naturally I showed up. When I saw him, the President of the United States was standing on the United Nations stage. The room fell silent. Everything was a blur, even meeting him afterwards. I didn't even know Joe Biden cared about global warming like that, but who knows his true agenda? Chapter 4, Local Encounters. Beyond the confines of the conference center, one evening, I strolled along the bustling streets of a traditional marketplace. It teemed with color and life. The scent of exotic spices filled the air as vendors hawked, their voices rising and falling in a melodic symphony of business. I also thoroughly enjoyed myself as I haggled over prices just for the fun of it. I quickly took on the title of clever Indian girl at the marketplace. Then I found myself drawn to a small shawarma shop tucked away in a quiet corner of the city. There, I struck up a conversation with the locals, swapping stories and sharing laughs late into the night. It was a reminder of the beauty behind human connection and its ability to transcend cultural differences. Chapter 5, Connecting with Nature. On my next mission, I decided to go snorkeling in the crystal clear waters of the Red Sea. Floating amidst the colorful coral reefs and darting schools of fish, I couldn't help but marvel at the intricate beauty of nature and the delicate balance of life beneath the waves. It was a humbling experience to see God's work at play, serving as a reminder of the fragility of our planet and the urgent need to protect its precious ecosystems. As I emerged from the water, deep in thought, salt-kissed and sun-soaked, I felt a sense of peace and renewal wash over me. I felt as if I had undergone a second baptism in the same waters that cleansed Moses and the Israelites. Gazing out over the endless expanse of the sea on my last day in Egypt, I knew that my time here had left an undeniable mark on my soul. A reminder of the power of God to connect us all. I felt reborn. Chapter 6, Reality. On the next day, as I boarded my flight back to snowy Canada, I couldn't help but reflect on the tapestry of experiences, each one leaving an unexplainable influence on this new, redefined version of myself. As I gazed out over the clouds and flew through the sky, the memories of Egypt danced in my mind, like the shifting sands of the desert. It had been a journey of discovery and transformation. In the end, I realized that it is not the places we visit or the things we see that change us, but the way God uses them to make us understand the beauty of life. So as I returned back home to Canada, I held on to the most powerful realization of all. I wasn't made to conquer the world, but to love it instead.
Abby Emanuel will jolt us out of our complacency in How to Be Loved. Abby.
Hi, my name is Abby, and I wrote about my honest take on the concept of love. So, how to be loved. We talk about our love languages and constantly reflect on how we think we need to be cared for. But how often do we attempt to fight for our self-preservation and create boundaries that assert respect? Is it worth talking about whether we like physical affection, quality time, gifts, acts of service, or words of affirmation when we still expect none of the above? It would be nice, we say, if people would treat us that way, but neglect to state the things that would be nice if they changed how they behaved. How can I be better for you? How do you appreciate being loved? The intentions are kind, but if I were to really say what was on my mind, I would let you know the question with no action proved to show no real support. If you truly did care, maybe there would be less hurt people in the world. Maybe you wouldn't explode over a difficult discussion. Maybe you wouldn't lie about small details to hide from any repercussions. Maybe you'd be able to empathize and respond without any projections of hurt, because you know it's not about saving yourself, but rather understanding why they're upset. If I were to really care for myself, I tell you that love goes beyond gifts or touch or time. If I were to care for myself, I do all the things I hate to make myself feel all right. I would confront the problems that need to change. I would tell you I'm not emotionally capable of carrying your pain today. I would tell you that my belongings are offered to you out of love, but never expected as though you deserve it. I would tell you that I do enjoy physical touch, but there are times when it's too much. I would tell you I enjoy quality time, but when you take advantage of it, it feels like a crime. I would tell you I enjoy gifts, but when you complain that no one ever gives back, it subtracts from the matter of fact that love isn't about what you purchase. I would tell you that your acts of service shouldn't be done expecting transactional efforts. I would tell you that your words of affirmation were less of admiration and more for the amplification of your self-gratification. I wouldn't go as far as to say that love languages don't matter, because they do. They show hope. They show that love can be tangibly understood. In a world where people are incredibly different and beautifully intricate, love can abound. But having hope that maybe one day you will be held with respect is a battle that can't be faced without some defense. Building defense is not being defensive. It's showing you have the right to be loved the way you see best because you deserve nothing less. How can we feel seen without attempting to care for what is unseen? How can they know they're venturing through the wrong pursuit if they don't know they're looking through the wrong point of view? But you too have to create a space where you can love and be loved. It's the battle to understand that you're worth it, and realize that love starts with yourself before it extends to anyone else. And in retrospect, if you think you deserve more than what anyone is capable of, love ever reach the limits you have set without it being undermined. I'm not telling you to settle for less, but knowing you're worth it, but so is someone else, is all we could do to create room for more care in this world. Love is about how it is expressed as much as it is about how it is accepted. Knowing how love goes beyond the restrictions you have created for yourself. It's so vast and hard to describe because it can look like homemade food, a hug during your last goodbye, a kiss from someone you like, or a friend just sitting by your side. It can feel warm, ecstatic, peaceful, and intense. It's the feeling of finally being safe enough to let loose and help your mind and body feel at rest. It's more than being infatuated, and it's less than an obsession. It's the perfect in-between where words may lack, but the heart knows. So why would we keep it to ourselves and inhibit the kindness that can reside by deciding who's worth it and following your mind's prototype? It's not an exchange based on if they feel the same. It's greater than the reactions we face and the hate that may prevail. Love knows no wrong, even though we do. But the beauty of its uniqueness is that it looks different in everyone's eyes. Yet how will we ever know how to fully love if we never know what other people want? And how will people know what we want if we never tell them?
In Moral Enlightenment, Sarah Stephen explores stereotypes and representation in order to get under our skin. Sarah.
I was born in India, where they make brown people. All kinds of brown people, light ones, dark ones, even ones that don't really look brown. So it was safe to say that I never thought about my skin color too much. Of course, there was the unavoidable doubt that came with watching TV shows and films starring people with much lighter skin tones than me. As much as I would love to place all the blame on Hollywood, Bollywood favors beautiful pearlescent skin just as much. The checklist for becoming a Bollywood star is, can you dance? Are you light-skinned? And, oh, that's about it. I'm only slightly exaggerating. But nonetheless, apart from the colorism ingrained in the bones of the society I grew up in, I didn't think about my skin or my appearance too much. When I was young, I had a love for clothes, sparkles, and anything that would make a unicorn laugh. But I shoved it all down, deep down at the age of 14. Why? Oh, I'm sorry, didn't you get the memo? Cool girls don't care about stuff. They roll around on their skateboards and high tops listening to Kesha. They flip their perfect and messy streaked hair and roll their eyes at girls who wear dresses. They walk around in their ill-fitting clothes because who cares about clothes anyway? Don't worry though, everyone still finds them super cool and beautiful. Alex Russo, Miley Stewart, that one girl from that Flickr movie, all cool girls. My mother would beg me to dress decently and look proper. I always thought it was a mother-daughter thing. But no, she had other reasons. Indians are perceived a certain way. They look at us and the first thing they see is always going to be brown. Always. Shabby, unkempt, smelly, unattractive. That was the first time I heard words to describe Indians. Never bought it though. That's obviously not true, I would say. I think it's a rite of passage for every person to not believe something until they experience it, to think that they are the exception to the rule. It's selfish and self-centered, but it is what it is. The first time I experienced implicit biases was when I wasn't let into my own building after living there for over a year. My family and I had been living in Hong Kong for almost 3 years at that point. It was 8 p.m., I was wearing sweatpants and slides, my hair was messy, I had no makeup on. I had just returned from a grocery store run down the road when I was stopped from entering the same elevator I had taken for the past year and a half. I stood at the reception desk humiliated as I was forced to wait until one of my family members could identify me. It was that day I realized some things can't be done by people of color without assumptions being made by the many. You are the representation for an entire group of people every time you step outside. If you're loud, you feed into that perception. If you're quiet, have you just created a new stereotype? You aren't one person anymore, you are an entire nation. Whoever said no man is an island probably wasn't a person of color. That was a joke. Yes. I know that they didn't literally mean. Let's continue. My mother was right. Indians are seen a certain way, and it sucked. The sad thing was that that experience wasn't an isolated one. I remember once sitting through an entire guest lecture where the Canadian speaker complained about how India had mentally, emotionally, and spiritually drained him. Not because of some big personal experience like eat, pray, love or something. It was India itself that was a horror to his senses, he said. Apparently so much so that his wife noticed a difference in his behavior. He has PTSD from butter chicken, I whispered to my sister. We both chuckled, but it was still a bizarre experience. What about the time I read in a textbook about understanding people? That Indians tend to be smelly because India is, wait for it, hot. Or the time a classmate was complaining about his roommate being a mess and concluded with, and I quote, "What can you do? You know what Indians are like." Or when someone says, "There are too many of you here." Online isn't much of a respite either. You read comments under Indian influencers or Indian themed videos saying things like, "I can smell it from here," or "shit, dear." Some are more creative than others. You know that saying, "Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me." Yeah, that one. Sometimes words can cut deep, deeper than people expect. I wonder if people knew how much what they say matters, hurts even, would they say it? Maybe that's why they say it. Either way, it worked. I took myself more seriously because it seemed like no one else would. Even so, I know my experiences are not as bad as most. Every day there are countless atrocities being committed against people of a certain color, people of a certain gender, a certain religion. It took a long time for me to learn the secret to not letting people's opinions bother you. The secret, dare I say, to the universe itself. Here it is. Are you ready? People are idiots. Now, before you get your pitchforks and spears, allow me to explain. When you realize that most of the time people have a default of being idiots, a lot of what they say rolls off the back. I'm an idiot. You're an idiot. The person next to you, look at the person next to you. They're an idiot. It takes so much of the pressure off. Of course, that person said something insensitive. They've got idiot in their blood. You are a racist human. I can understand how this may not be your understanding of life. If you came here for a comforting, morally sound understanding of humanity, I apologize for your misjudgment, but I am a 21-year-old film student who had to Google what credit score means. I am not the place for moral enlightenment. Thank you.
What happened to the writer is not what matters, Vivian Gornick says. What matters is the larger sense that the writer is able to make of what happened. For that, the power of a writing imagination is required. Using the backdrop of a Malaysian vacation, Kale Chow takes us on a deeper, more reflective journey among the twinkling stars. Kale.
Hi everyone. So it's my honor to be the last one coming up here and share the story. And it's gonna be about the twinkling stars. It was in a bar in Malaysia, the Sunset Bar on the beach of the Shangri-La Hotel in Sabah, Kota Kinabalu. An excellent spot for watching the sunset, well known as the top 10 sunset viewing sites around the world. It's a scenery that has repeatedly appeared during those fleeting moments between dreaming and waking. From dawn to dusk, from first sight to strangers, and from lucidity to confusion. The boy at that time was 16, not yet of a drinking age, but during the halfway through the carefree journey, seeing the sunrise and sunset, just like our meeting and party, and finally find out why would people prefer to see a blurred view in what was originally a clear vision. Deep down in my memory, it seems it was my first trip abroad, together with my family. And I am exactly that type of person who wanted to stay in a hotel every day and sit in the beach for the whole day. And that's what the word travel means to me. It means taking a rest, enjoy the peaceful moment, and set my mind free. But things do not always turn out the way I want. Starts from 8 a.m. in the morning. My family took me to the Kinabalu Park and to the pouring hot spring. After a long day of long distance traveling, plus I didn't get a very good sleep last night, I was already exhausted, mentally and physically, when we are back to the hotel at evening. When we passed by the beach, it wasn't sunset yet, but the crimson and the tangerine in the sky and the gradually darkening sea had already painted a beautiful picture. I stood by the sea, completely oblivious that my family had walked quite a distance away from me. They turned back and looked at me. You know that in Malaysia you must be over 21 years old to drink, so better not go, my parents told me. Although I was very reluctant at the moment, I could only follow my family to eat dinner in a restaurant. Have I already missed the sunset? Maybe not yet. After the dinner, instead of going back to my room to rest, I secretly ran to the beach. Unfortunately, the sky had darkened and the lights were on. It was long past sunset. And of course, I couldn't order or call, but I sat in the next seat to the bar, looking at the quiet beach. And not content with just this, I kept walking to the deeper part of the beach, gradually away from the lights of the bar. But strangely, I could still see the sand grains clearly under my feet, and there was still a faint light around me. I seemed to suddenly realize something. And when I looked up, I found that the moon was covered by the cloud layer, and I was a little disappointed. But I immediately thought of another possibility. Looking up again, I saw the twinkling stars flashing and shining brilliantly. Time flies, and it is now the season of early cherry blossoms. I see mischievous children reach out in their playful frolic. And when the petal leaves the flower, the breeze also just happens to flutter by, preventing it from falling into the child's palm. Instead, fluttering it higher and further away. In an instant, the image awakens to that summer. The cloud layer gradually conceals the afterglow of the setting sun, and the rain starts falling.
Sleeping stones begin to flow slowly yet rapidly. I see the birds losing their pace amidst their wanderings, lightly skimming over the fish, gazing within the water. The deep blue of the water seems almost like a curtain, separating her freedom and his restraint. Lights are off and curtain falls. We live in a realistic world, traversing 4 seasons, switching between day and night, and I hear all kinds of voices complaining about all sorts of injustice, misfortune, and discontentment. But at the same time, we know deep from our heart, how is it possible that our agreements today forgive the yesterday's blindness? We're slowly eroded and submerged in those sleepless nights and the mornings that we can't wake up from. That's why we force ourselves to get used to loneliness. The momentary fireworks are so dazzling as they cast darker shadows on the ground. Dr. Jen, a lawyer and also a polemicist graduated from Harvard University, once said, "We choose reconciliation with our own sadness instead of forgetting, because everything that once brought me sorrow is also everything that I loved most." Sometimes what we long for doesn't always come true immediately, and that's what we call pity or regret. But please believe me, one day all regrets will be fulfilled in another way. When memories surge into another summer, from morning, noon, afternoon, dusk, night to dawn, you can enjoy the warm sunlight, bath in the moonlight. But I prefer the stars at night, because with the change of day and night, even though they may be hidden in the sunlight, when you need them, stars will surely shine bright. Thank you.
Can we have a big round of applause for all of them? Thank you for joining us this evening. We have a survey for which you can use the QR code, and you might also vote for the People's Choice Award. I'm not sure whether we'll be able to calculate it tonight. I'm not sure how the QR code works, but thank you for coming tonight. This is the last class of the spring semester. For me, for you, maybe, and it is always the highlight of my year. Thank you all, you did a great job. There's a few cookies left and a little bit of water, so please take healthy up. And please do the survey.
What did you say?